A powerful skill was invoked. The man's hand shone amidst an aura of power. Before him, a colossal monster rose, emanating a menacing aura. A man in combat attire faced the colossal beast. The fight was intense. The man delivered quick blows while the creature defended itself fiercely. The battle continued. The man fought bravely. The fight came to an end with the man's defeat. He succumbed to the monster's power. The warrior lay unconscious, defeated. His consciousness began to fade while a familiar robotic voice echoed in his mind. The message, "Player death mission failed," appeared before his eyes. The scene then cuts to a convenience store. The clerk informed the customer of the purchase amount. The young man handed over the coins, introducing himself as Kim Kibong. Kim Kibong was a 20-year-old university student who led an ordinary life, working part-time every day. He thought it was absurd. There was no way he could be happy with that miserable life. The same events, the same monotonous routine repeated every day. The boredom consumed him. Kim Kibong sighed, exhausted from the monotony. Suddenly, his phone vibrated. It was a message from his mother. He found the sudden message strange. His mother asked what he was doing, to which he replied he was working, as always. She then reminded Kim that it was payday and confessed to craving fried chicken. Kim Kibong agreed to buy the chicken for his mother. She requested one with sweet and sour sauce and another regular fried chicken. Kim prepared to go buy the order. Kim Kibong continued his routine in the convenience store. Suddenly, he heard a bang. A loud and unexpected sound scared him. Kim wondered what that noise had been. Frightened, he questioned if it had been an earthquake. In the night sky, two colossal creatures faced off. Kim Kibong left the store, confused by what had just happened. He looked at the sky, incredulous. The young man wondered if it was really real, questioning if he was dreaming. One of the creatures fell from the sky in flames, spreading chaos throughout the city. Terrified, Kim Kibong tried to understand what was happening. He felt his mind collapse in the face of that absurd reality. Kim Kibong wondered where those monsters had come from. While running, he stumbled, falling to the ground. He cursed, frustrated with his own stumble. Kim questioned why that was happening at that moment while struggling to get up. He tried to understand what those creatures were. Kim got up with difficulty. Cursing himself, Kim wondered if the monster had done that. Suddenly, a system announcement appeared before Kim Kibong. The system announced the activation of the Human Awakening program, causing strangeness in Young. Before he could comprehend what was happening, the system announced the start of the awakening test. Kim wondered, confused, what an awakening was. A wave of energy enveloped Kim Kibong's body. He felt a discharge running through every cell of his body. Dazed and in pain, he fell to the ground. Confused and still feeling the impact of the energy, Kim let out a groan of pain, questioning what had happened. He opened his eyes slowly, trying to focus his vision. He looked around, trying to understand where he was. Kim Kibong noticed that his legs, previously aching, were healed. A series of incomprehensible events followed. He felt as if he were in a whirlwind of information and happenings. His mind was confused, trying to process everything. Suddenly, a holographic message appeared before him. "Greetings, player. Welcome to the awakening area." Simultaneously, the system announced the spawning of a monster. A new message appeared, setting the mission. "Attack the test monster." Kim Kibong was startled by the sudden appearance of the creature. He questioned the meaning of it, not understanding how he could fight that colossal being. The monster roared, a terrifying display of ferocity. It moved violently, ready to attack. Kim Kibong screamed, paralyzed by fear. He despaired, feeling that his death was imminent. The creature approached Kim Kibong. A wave of energy coursed through Kim Kibong's body. The system announced that he had failed the awakening test. Then, the system informed that the player's body would be regenerated. Kim Kibong opened his eyes slowly, still feeling the impact of the experience. He noticed, surprised, that he was alive. On the ground, Kim Kibong saw a body identical to his own. He then understood that it was his corpse. Kim Kibong felt nauseated at the grotesque image of his own lifeless body. Kim Kibong, still in shock at seeing his own corpse, tried to understand what the word regenerating meant. A glimmer of hope shone in his eyes, but it was soon overtaken by fear, questioning if it really meant what he thought. At that moment, the guttural roar of the monster echoed through the area, causing Kim Kibong to cower in panic. The gigantic creature moved, casting a threatening shadow over the young man. Paralyzed by fear, Kim Kibong watched helplessly as the monster approached. An agonizing scream escaped his lips as he felt the creature's sharp claws tear through his body, the pain overwhelming him completely. Once again, Kim Kibong felt the strange wave of energy course through his body, and his inert body slid to the cold floor. The last images he saw were the flickering lights of the system, coldly announcing that he had failed the awakening test and that his body would be regenerated. Kim Kibong stood up once again, the regeneration process bringing him back to life. The holographic mission message, "Attack the test monster," flashed insistently before his eyes. Confused and irritated, he questioned how he could defeat that creature if the system continuously regenerated it. A new message appeared. "It is impossible to kill it." Kim Kibong then understood that the objective of the test was not to defeat the monster. He sought answers, questioning the system's voice about who controlled it. Kim Kibong demanded to know who that voice was and why it had brought him there. The system explained that this was the player's awakening test area, created with the fairness of the test in mind. Kim Kibong questioned the meaning of awakening and fairness. The voice then explained that humanity was a species that needed an awakening. Once awakened, the player would no longer need to fear death during the test. The system assured Kim Kibong that no matter how many times he died, his body would be regenerated. Kim Kibong questioned if he was just a game character, incredulous at the situation. He recognized the absurdity of it, wondering if he was in a fantasy novel. Kim Kibong concluded that he had no choice but to believe in that reality, especially because of all the corpses around him. Another Kim Kibong appeared in a new environment, confused and disoriented. He stared at the reader, eyes wide and breathing heavily. He seemed to be trapped in a time loop, condemned to relive the same nightmare. The phrase, "a player," he says, echoed in his mind, filled with incredulity and a touch of bitter irony. Meanwhile, the test monster approached Kim Kibong, who prepared for another clash. He lamented, recognizing that he never had a choice from the beginning. A powerful energy emanated from the creature's mouth, about to hit Kim Kibong. Kim Kibong fell on a cold, icy surface, the dense mist around him enveloping him like a ghostly veil. He coughed, trying to catch his breath, while feeling his body aching after numerous deaths and regenerations. Struggling to stand up, he looked around, trying to understand where he was. That new environment was completely different from the previous test area. A feeling of loneliness and helplessness invaded him, amplified by the oppressive silence hanging in the air. It was at that moment of deep introspection that Kim Kibong reflected on his options. Continue dying in agony, reliving that infinite cycle of suffering, or accept the imposed situation, no matter how absurd it seemed. An intense energy enveloped Kim Kibong. The system announced the success of his awakening. Kim Kibong had obtained an ability. His status was displayed in a holographic window, showing his attributes. He clenched his fist, feeling a new strength pulsing through his veins. Kim Kibong took a step forward, ready for what was to come next. The system informed him that he had awakened the ability Body Enhancement. Before him, the monster awaited. Kim Kibong decided to accept everything and put an end to that test. He prepared to face the monster with his new ability. An intense light appeared again. The system announced that the awakening test had been confirmed. Kim Kibong received congratulations for passing the test. He smiled, relieved to have survived that ordeal. A wave of euphoria took over Kim Kibong upon receiving the message, "Mission accomplished." The reward, the skill, Body Enhancement, was officially his. Kim Kibong took a deep breath, feeling a mix of exhaustion and satisfaction. He had gone through hell, but now he was a player. Everything to him came from a good dream. Only at that moment, several error messages appeared before Kim Kibong. The system informed that, due to an unknown error, he could not leave the test area. He questioned what was happening, confused by the situation. The system announced the start of a new awakening test. Kim Kibong, still stuck in the test area, wondered what that nonsense was. The monster guess. It appeared there again, roaring fiercely. He despaired upon realizing that he could not leave the test area. Kim Kibong cursed, frustrated and furious with the situation. He couldn't believe he was trapped in that infernal cycle. Kim Kibong fell to the ground, exhausted and defeated. The system informed that an unknown error, like a bug in a game, trapped him in that space. He felt powerless, like a character stuck in a defective game. Kim Kibong recalled the cycles of death and regeneration he had faced. A week passed, then a month, and finally a year. Kim Kibong felt his mind slowly slipping away, sanity shattering with each death and rebirth. He realized that, even with his body being regenerated, his mind was not keeping up with the process. With each cycle, he felt more distant from reality. Suddenly, the system announced that his life had increased due to the continuous use of backup data. Kim Kibong checked his status, confused. He questioned if the system had adjusted the error. The system explained that his life attribute had increased due to the continuous attacks from the monster. Kim Kibong complained, arguing that the system had said it would adjust the data. He then asked if the system had corrected the error. The system informed that the error had not been adjusted or corrected. Kim Kibong received the terrible news that he could not escape that place. 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Time dragged on for Kim Kibong, each day an agonizing repetition of the previous one. He tried to run, searching in vain for a way out of that prison, while increasing his strength with each regeneration, hoping to surpass the monster. He fought tirelessly against the creature, trying to find a gap in its defense, a way to defeat it. His attributes increased considerably. With each cycle, he became stronger, faster, more resilient, but it was all useless. The system coldly reminded him that the test monster was invincible, an immortal puppet created to torture him. At that moment, sitting on the cold floor of the test area, Kim Kibong recalled the first day, the hope he felt when awakening his powers, the anger that consumed him when realized a trap had fallen. Now, after years of suffering and frustration, the flame of revolt was extinguished in his eyes, giving way to a deep and resigned emptiness. He gave up resisting, surrendering to that cruel fate. 10 years passed. Kim Kibong questioned the system about what was happening on Earth. The system responded that Earth had not changed much. 10 years in that dimension equaled 12 days on Earth. 12 days had passed. Kim Kibong received a message from his mother, reminding him that it was payday. He remembered that he needed to buy chicken for his mother. Kim Kibong headed towards the convenience store, carrying with him the weight of a decade lost in an infernal dimension. 500 years passed. Kim Kibong sat on the ground, his expression empty and his gaze lost. He felt all his memories becoming more and more distant, as if they were slowly being erased by time. His friends, his family, he struggled to remember who they were, their faces becoming indistinct blurs in his mind. Kim Kibong questioned who he was, his own identity fading into the void of that dimension. He could only think of one question: why? The question echoed in his mind, a mantra of despair and incomprehension. Meanwhile, the test monster crumbled, indifferent to Kim Kibong's suffering. Kim Kibong continued to question why, the question hammering in his mind. He writhed on the ground, overcome by despair. Kim Kibong screamed, "Why?" the anguish echoing through the empty dimension. The monster approached, but Kim Kibong no longer showed fear. His eyes were empty, his soul corroded by centuries of suffering. Kim Kibong was attacked by the monster, but the pain no longer affected him. He felt only an immense emptiness, an abyss of despair that consumed him completely. "Why? Why?" he repeated endlessly, his voice hoarse and broken. With each repetition of the question, Kim Kibong's sanity ebbed away a little more. Kim Kibong screamed in despair, questioning the awakening, the justice, the player. He no longer cared about any of that. Kim Kibong wondered why he was the only one suffering. He just wanted to live and enjoy life. Kim Kibong remembered Arthur, the prodigy boy from Olympus Academy. Arthur was the one behind it all. Kim Kibong screamed, taken by uncontrollable fury. Time passed. 10 years had passed since the day of humanity's awakening. Lightning cut the sky, foretelling the approaching storm. Error messages appeared, indicating system problems. One message informed that an immeasurable amount of damage was affecting the server. The system's firewall had been destroyed. Kim Kibong fell to the ground, his body enveloped by an aura of chaotic energy. The monster disintegrated, the chaotic energy consuming it completely. Kim Kibong stood up, his hair now white as snow. His eyes shone with a supernatural intensity. The system informed the duration of the awakening test. 3,000 years. Kim Kibong's new statuses were displayed, his attributes incredibly high. The system informed it was impossible to connect to the server. The logout initialization was suspended. Kim Kibong looked at the sky, his gaze distant and thoughtful. He reflected on everything that had happened in the last 3,000 years, trying to assimilate the vastness of that experience. Kim Kibong wondered what had happened to him, how his mind and body had resisted such torment. A system message appeared, informing that he would return to reality. But the process was interrupted by another message. The system tried to synchronize Kim Kibong's return to reality, but 10 years had already passed. Kim Kibong tried to call the system, his voice loaded with apprehension. The system responded, informing that the return to reality function was offline and that he was useless at that moment. Kim Kibong sighed, the frustration evident on his face. He had no control over that situation. He was just a pawn in the hands of a faulty system. He decided that, for now, he would go home, trying to resume his life after that traumatic experience. 10 years later, Kim Kibong finally returned to reality, stepping into a world that had moved on without him. Kim Kibong observed the city, finding the lack of people strange. He wondered where everyone was. Kim Kibong called for someone, but the city remained silent. He approached a man, asking if he was okay. Kim Kibong asked what had happened to the world, shocked by the devastation around. The man responded that the world was in ruins. Kim Kibong inquired the reason for the destruction, seeking an explanation for that apocalyptic scene. The man explained that it was all the fault of the awakened, who caused a great disaster. Kim Kibong wondered who the awakened were. The man stated that everyone was awakened. Kim Kibong was perplexed by the revelation. The man added that after the day of awakening, monsters began to appear and attack people. He explained that the awakened united and fought against the monsters, but despite the awakened's victory over the monsters, the world was still in ruins. Kim Kibong asked where everyone was. The man responded that everyone was dead. An alarm sounded, warning of a dungeon invasion. The man informed that a rank B dungeon had appeared in the community section B of Jongno. Sirens echoed through the city, increasing the tension. Kim Kibong, observing the scene, thought the situation was bad. The city defense force prepared to face the dungeon. The leader ordered the assault team to get ready. One of the soldiers asked about the strategy, seeking guidance. The leader responded that there was no time to elaborate a strategy. The city defense force was at a numerical and firepower disadvantage. The soldier questioned what they should do, desperate with the situation. The leader, with a determined look, stated that they could not retreat. They would fight the monsters until the end, even if it meant death. Then, the leader ordered the assault team to advance, facing the monsters emerging from the dungeon. He stated that they would not retreat until they eliminated all the monsters and protected the city. A man in advanced technological armor advanced toward the dungeon. Kim Kibong observed the scene, his expression serious and thoughtful. A status window appeared before Kim Kibong, showing information about the man. Lee Sejin, level 999. Class, Knight, innate traits, Sacred Sword. Kim Kibong thought it was pathetic that, after 10 years, humanity still depended on a single hero. Lee Sejin, the knight, ordered everyone to stop, questioning if they were trying to die. He asked them to retreat and leave the dungeon to him. Lee Sejin prepared to face the dungeon alone, confident in his power. Kim Kibong, observing the scene, smiled. He approached Lee Sejin, ignoring his warnings. The soldiers tried to stop him, but Kim Kibong kept advancing. He stated that he needed to talk to Lee Sejun. Lee Sejun ordered Kim Kibong to step back. Kim Kibong continued to approach, ignoring the warning. The soldiers wondered about Kim Kibong's identity, confused by his insistence on approaching the knight. One of the soldiers exclaimed that he was a player, recognizing the peculiar aura emanating from Kim Kibong. A shockwave swept through the area, emanating from Kim Kibong. The soldiers were startled by the sudden power he demonstrated. Kim Kibong released an absurd amount of energy, the sky and earth trembling before his strength. The dungeon, once imposing, disintegrated into dust. The soldiers watched the scene, incredulous. One of them murmured in shock that he had destroyed the dungeon with a single strike. The system announced the generation of a new dungeon. Kim Kibong observed, incredulous, the chaotic energy dissipating in the air. The system informed that the dungeon rank had been updated to 5 stars. Kim Kibong, with a serious expression, thought that things were getting increasingly complicated. He didn't understand what was happening, but he sensed that the situation was much more severe than he had imagined. Grotesque and powerful monsters emerged from the new dungeon, their roars echoing through the destroyed city. Kim Kibong prepared for combat, releasing an aura of energy that made the air crackle. His eyes glowed with a supernatural intensity, reflecting the immense power he had accumulated over the millennia. He charged at the monsters, his superhuman speed turning him into a blur. Kim Kibong was ready to destroy them, without hesitation or mercy. An explosion of power shook the area, the impact of Kim Kibong's energy throwing the monsters away. Kim Kibong stood up amid the dust and debris, observing the defeated monsters with a cold and calculating gaze. He ordered Lee Sejun to retreat, stating that he would handle the situation. Kim Kibong didn't want the knight to get involved in that fight, sensing that the new dungeon was something far beyond human capability to handle. A new wave of energy emanated from Kim Kibong, the aura pulsing with even greater intensity. He was ready to obliterate the dungeon, eliminate the source of that chaos once and for all. A dimensional portal opened in the sky, the energy distorting the space around it. Kim Kibong observed the scene, his expression impassive. He showed no fear or surprise, only cold determination. From the portal, a colossal creature emerged, its grotesque and threatening form imposing itself over the ruined city. Attacked Kim Kibong with a deafening roar, his sharp claws tearing through the air. Kim Kibong dodged the attack with disconcerting ease, his superhuman speed allowing him to move like a ghost. He counterattacked with a devastating punch, the impact launching the creature away and creating a crater in the ground. Kim Kibong advanced, delivering a series of precise and powerful blows. The creature tried to defend itself, but it was in vain. Kim Kibong's strength was overwhelming. He completely subdued it, each blow shattering bones and tearing flesh. From the dimensional portal, more colossal creatures emerged, their red eyes glowing with fury. They were ready to face Kim Kibong, willing to avenge their fallen companion. Kim Kibong launched himself into the battle, facing the monsters with unyielding ferocity. He moved with impressive agility, dodging attacks and counterattacking with brutal force. Kim Kibong did not retreat. He advanced without hesitation, defeating the creatures one by one. With each blow, an explosion of energy shook the place, the ground trembling under his feet. Kim Kibong fought with the fury of a vengeful god, the accumulated rage of millennia of suffering manifesting in every movement. The monsters fell from the sky, defeated, their colossal bodies crashing to the ground with violent thuds. Kim Kibong observed the carnage he had created, his gaze cold and distant. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. He shot towards the dimensional portal, his speed breaking the sound barrier. Determined to seal that rift in space-time, Kim Kibong concentrated all his energy into a single point. A powerful boom echoed through the skies, Kim Kibong's energy creating a hole in the dimensional portal. The rift twisted and closed in on itself, as if being sucked into a vortex. The soldiers watched the scene, incredulous. One of them questioned what was happening, his voice trembling and hesitant. He couldn't believe what his eyes were seeing. Kim Kibong returned, landing softly on the ground. The aura of power around him slowly dissipated, revealing a young man with white hair and an impassive gaze. The soldiers stepped back, frightened by the unimaginable power he emanated. A mixture of fear and admiration filled their hearts. One of the soldiers exclaimed that it was impossible, his mind refusing to accept what his eyes were seeing. He wondered if Kim Kibong had stopped a global-scale attack alone, destroying the monsters and closing the dimensional portal without any help. That went beyond human comprehension. Lee Sejin, the knight, observed Kim Kibong with an expression of shock and admiration. He had never witnessed so much power in a single human being. Kim Kibong had become a legend, the savior of humanity. One of the soldiers exclaimed, incredulous, "What just happened?" He questioned what Kim Kibong had done, his mind confused by the absurd display of power he had just witnessed. Another soldier, in shock, murmured, "This is impossible." He wondered if Kim Kibong had stopped a global-scale attack alone, destroying the monsters and closing the dimensional portal without any help. That feat was something that defied logic and human understanding. Lee Sejin, the knight, observed the scene in silence, his expression serious, thoughtful. He had never seen anything like it. Kim Kibong turned and walked towards Lee Sejun, the powerful aura around him intimidating the soldiers who stood in his way. The knight, feeling Kim Kibong's powerful aura, Kim Kibong activated the ability Body Enhancement. The system confirmed the activation and informed that awakened mode was on. Kim Kibong released a powerful wave of energy, his eyes emanating a threatening aura. An explosion of power radiated from his body, leaving a trail of destruction. Kim Kibong observed the devastation, his gaze cold and calculating. At that moment, he had a memory. It was a message from his mother. She asked what he was doing, as always. His mother then reminded Kim Kibong that it was payday. She revealed she missed him and wanted to eat chicken. Kim Kibong, with a cold look, stomped the ground forcefully, creating an explosion of energy. He quickly typed a message to his mother asking her to buy chicken with soy sauce. A series of energy explosions propelled him into the sky. He shot towards the monsters, leaving a trail of light. Kim Kibong dodged the monsters' attacks. A woman observed the battle, commenting that Kim Kibong was redirecting the boss's attacks away from the city. Kim Kibong faced the colossal monster. The monster released a powerful burst of energy. Kim Kibong observed the attack, getting closer and closer to it. Soon, a shock wave swept the area. Kim Kibong touched the ground with his hand. He prepared to counterattack. Kim Kibong concentrated his energy. A drop of sweat ran down his face. Kim Kibong delivered a devastating punch, creating a whirlwind of energy that ravaged the surrounding area. The monster was hit squarely by Kim Kibong's strike. It writhed in pain. The monster was violently thrown back. Kim Kibong watched the scene, panting. Various people observed the battle, scared and surprised. An explosion of light engulfed the area. Kim Kibong found himself in a colossal crater, observing the destruction around him. A woman stared at him, speechless. The woman was in shock, her mouth open in a silent scream. Kim Kibong deactivated his ability. His hair returned to its original color. Kim Kibong observed the crater he had created. Kim Kibong felt exhausted. Kim Kibong walked towards a group of people. A woman approached Kim Kibong, holding some papers in her arms. However, the woman called out to Kibong. Kim Kibong observed the sky. A woman called out to Kibong. Kim Kibong looked at the woman, not recognizing her. Kim Kibong stared at her, confused. He found himself in a busy place, surrounded by people he did not recognize. The system initiated a voice scan, confirming that the voice matched the data in Kim Kibong's memories. He observed the woman, still not understanding. The last 3,000 years flashed quickly through his mind. The emotions that had worn out during those long centuries suddenly resurfaced. Tears ran down Kim's face. Kibong, he called for the woman. "Mother?" The woman also cried, taken by emotion. Kim Kibong approached the woman. The woman approached Kim Kibong. Kim Kibong ran towards the woman, desperate to hug her. Wanted posters with Kim Kibong's photo were shown, indicating his disappearance. Kim Kibong hugged the woman tightly, tears streaming down his face. The woman, in tears, asked Kim Kibong where he had been. expressing the suffering of her relentless search. Kim Kibong, also in tears, apologized to the woman. He regretted not having been able to buy the chicken. Kim Kibong hugged the woman. A sharp blade cut through the air. A man was hit and screamed in agony. The man and the woman fell from the building. Kim Kibong watched the scene, horrified. He called for the woman. "Mother!" After 3,000 years, Kim Kibong became the only survivor in the midst of a sea of bodies. He had become stronger, but at a devastating cost. Drops of blood dripped, staining the ground. His powerful body, forged in millennia of suffering, had not been able to protect those he loved. A silhouette of Kim Kibong embracing someone was pierced by a monstrous blade. The sky turned red, reflecting the tragedy that had befallen him. Kim Kibong, alone amid the devastation, was unable to protect those who were precious to him, the person Kim Kibong loved most. Blood flowed from the lifeless hand of a woman. Kim Kibong fell to his knees, the woman's body in his arms. He called out to her, "Mother!" His voice choked with pain and disbelief. A colossal monster appeared, its terrible roar shaking the air. Kim Kibong screamed, "Mother!" while the creature approached. The monster advanced, its mouth wide open, ready to devour the woman. A guttural roar echoed through the place. A woman dressed in military uniform positioned herself, pointing her weapon at the creature. She grunted, her eyes fixed on the monster. She fired at the monster, the bullets ricocheting off its armor. With a determined look, she continued to shoot, trying to stop the creature's advance. The shots pierced the creature, causing minor damage. The creature writhed in agony, the military woman's shots weakening it. Kim Kibong begged for his mother to wake up. He held her face in despair. His mother, with a thread of life, opened her eyes. She asked her son not to cry, declaring her love for him. Kim Kibong hugged her tightly, tears streaming down his face. He raised his head, his face bathed in tears, and a cry of pain and fury erupted from his lips. Kim Kibong, consumed by pain, let out an agonizing scream. The rain fell incessantly over the city. In the 39th Battalion of the Seoul Defense Force, a strong-looking man with a gray beard, sitting at his desk in the control center, commented on the constant noise of recent days. The military woman responded with a, "Yes, sir." The man, taking a drag on his cigarette, wondered what that problematic player was doing. He commented that all the reports from the past month were about the player. The military woman explained that he was clearing dungeons while advancing. He had already destroyed all the nearby dungeons. Dissatisfaction among the guilds was increasing, and they believed there would soon be a movement. The man, thoughtful, put the cigarette in his pocket. The man handed a document to the military woman, giving instructions to bring Kim Kibong before he lost control. An explosion of energy erupted from Kim Kibong, devastating the area around him. Kim Kibong, his face bathed in tears of fury, delivered a powerful blow to the monster. A shockwave traveled through the creature's body. The monster writhed in agony, Kim Kibong's blow causing devastating damage. The head of the monster fell to the ground. Kim Kibong watched the defeated creature. His eyes, once filled with fury, were now cold and empty, as if the battle had drained not only the life of the monster. A distant roar echoed through the air, breaking the silence, catching the attention of Kim Kibong. He turned slowly. He saw a horde of monsters, led by a larger and fiercer creature, appeared on the horizon. Their red eyes shone with an insatiable thirst for blood. Kim Kibong, standing among the bodies of his enemies, awaited the arrival of the horde. He wielded his sword firmly. The battle was far from over. A blade pierced through the body of one of the advancing monsters, marking the beginning of a new confrontation. The roars of the creatures mingled with the metallic sound of weapons clashing. The fight for survival was just beginning. Kim Kibong, amidst the horde of monsters, held his sword firmly. The blade. He took a deep breath, focusing his energy. It was time to use all his power. Activate skill, as the sword in his hand began to glow with a bluish light. Body enhancement, he completed, and a wave of power enveloped him. His eyes, once cold and empty, now shone with a fierce intensity. The system announced the activation of Awakened Mode Stage 1, confirming that Kim Kibong had unleashed his full potential. A powerful aura of energy emanated from him, sweeping the monsters around like dry leaves in a whirlwind. Bodies were thrown, bones shattered, and roars of pain echoed through the area. Kim Kibong's fury was relentless. After the massacre, the system informed that all the monsters had been eradicated. The rain continued to fall on the city. Kim Kibong was sitting among the rubble, his gaze distant and lost, as if he were in another world. He clenched his fist tightly. A figure approached, holding an umbrella over him, protecting him from the relentless rain. Kim Kibong looked up, facing the military woman who watched him with compassion. She approached slowly, extending her hand in a gesture of kindness. The woman introduced herself with a slight smile. It was Lieutenant Lee Jun from the Seoul Defense Force. She was there to find him. That just appeared, that will not be for anything, but to know if really our protagonist will finish him in the famous 1x1, that we know we from here will have to already be discovering that in a next part.